Here's how I convinced a famous YouTuber that I'm good at programming, lied to a multi-billion-dollar corporation to approve a fake app, and tricked multiple people into thinking that Danny Gonzalez was an AI. It all started one normal June day. I was scrolling Twitter when I randomly stumbled upon this tweet. I thought to myself, hey, I'm a pretty decent app designer. And what do you know? Confidence pays off. So Danny pitched me this simple idea. There was going to be 2 AI apps where the trick is that he's the AI. The first one is just text, similar to ChatGPT, where the user can just ask a question or anything really, and then the AI responds. The next one was an image one, similar to Midjourney, where the user asks for a picture of something and then the AI generates an image based on that prompt. So I'm not really a mobile app developer, but I really wanted to work on these apps. And Danny doesn't really know that I've never built a mobile app before, and honestly, how hard could it be? The problem with being given a kind of vague idea and then being asked to execute it is that I have to become what developers hate the most, a product manager. Before I could just dive in and do what I do best, I had to think about some critical questions that would help later on in the development process. Questions like, what happens when Danny's not available to answer? Or do we want people to be able to ask just one question and wait, or to send multiple messages? Or should we use a cute little robot icon so the AI doesn't seem ominous? So the idea is pretty simple. I mean, they're just AI apps and there's already ones that exist. But we want to ask questions like this because when we're writing the code, we kind of need objective answers to every possible situation. So I asked Danny, and while he figured out the answers to these questions, I put on my designer hat and mocked up really quick rough sketches of what I wanted these apps to look like. So I was really happy that Danny liked the flow of these apps, so I set off coding them. Like I said before, I've never really coded a mobile app. I've worked at Discord as a software engineer where I did push code to the mobile Discord app, but I've never really built my own app. So the first tech that I decided to use is something called React Native. The main motivating factors of using React Native were that A, I'm a web developer and I'm pretty familiar with React, and React Native is basically very similar to React. And 2, I don't want to write Kotlin or Swift. I'd prefer to just stick in JavaScript land, so that was out of the question. The other thing I used is something called Expo. Expo is recommended by the team behind React Native. I freaking love Expo. It basically comes with so many features that made coding this app a breeze. In particular, one of the things that I used for the Doodle app was the camera built in, and oh my gosh, it saved me so much time because it was just all the UI for the camera was there. I didn't have to do anything fancy, and Danny could just click a button and then the native iPhone camera UI would just pop up and it would be super simple. I was also able to use Expo to send Danny links for testing the apps before we push them to production. I'd have a dashboard that basically set up my builds, and then I could send him the links to the testing ones. The really awesome thing is that when he downloads the app, whenever I make updates and push those updates, he'll get those updates without having to reinstall the app. So yeah, I'm 100% an Expo stan. Love her. The setup for Expo is also really simple. You just gotta find someone to do it for you. Yo, code faster. Faster. Okay, I'm just kidding. But it is really simple. So now I had a platform that was going to help with the UI, but I still needed a way to keep track of messages. So I have a personal vendetta against databases and writing server-side code. I hate it. You can enjoy it. I just don't. So I wanted to use something for this that made the backend part of it super easy. Also, bonus points if it had an authentication solution. So something that helps with signing in and creating accounts. So that's why I decided to go with Firebase. Firebase is great when you want something that's easy to use and it'll do all the work for you, and you know for a fact that you're probably not gonna have over 100 users or so. And I mostly say that not because of scalability, but because of the cost. So Firebase has a ton of features that allowed me to not have to build a lot of things from scratch. So one of these is authentication. It has a bunch of different methods of letting users sign in and create accounts. So things like Apple or Google sign in, which were the ones that I needed for this app. Firebase also has Firestore. It's their real-time document-based database. Firebase allows me to store, sync, and query all the data for the mobile apps. Now, I do want to disclose that I absolutely despise document-based databases. Why? Why are they like that? It was an absolute pain in the ass. It's just such a weird way of thinking about databases, but I mean, at the end of the day, I had to pick something and it worked just fine. Anyways, I set up 3 collections: admins, conversations, and users. These FCM tokens are for push notifications. Don't worry about those. The admin collection has a list of users that are considered to be admins within the app. The conversations have user ID documents where there's a couple of fields, things like created at, updated at, enabled, responded, and seen. These user ID documents also had a messages collection, which were a list of messages in the conversation with that user. These are message IDs, and each message has the fields AI to indicate if it was Danny or the user, a created at, and the text of the message. Lastly, we had users, which also had user documents. It was really easy to have all the collections be keyed off of the user ID so that they can be easily queried. Each user document had the fields display name, which came from authentication if they used Google or Apple, email, phone number, which I actually don't think we used anywhere, but I think it came through from the sign-in, and photo URL for the profile pic. These are all pretty much the same for the chat and the Doodle app, except the Doodle app also had an image URL on the messages. Now, is this the correct way to structure data in a document-based database? I have no idea, but it worked. Something to note here, when you're using something like Firebase, make sure you add security rules. This is extremely important. These rules basically disallow random users to see other users' conversations or their personal information. These are incredibly annoying to write. The documentation was half wrong. They have a simulator to see if your rules work, but that was broken. But hey, you gotta do it. Then for Doodle Danny, I used Firebase storage to store all the photos that Danny would upload in response to prompts. This was so easy to set up and use, and it worked seamlessly since it's all under the same product. Now, I don't want to get too in the weeds with the code implementation. All you have to really know is that it's some of the best code that anyone has ever written. It's truly a work of art in itself. I could quite honestly hang up the code in a museum and people would line up around the block to view it. Let me just give you a quick overview. We basically have two versions of the app, an admin side and a user side. For the user, it's pretty simple. We have a sign-in screen with different sign-in option buttons, and the user can click on any of them to proceed. Once they're signed in, they see a little small description of the app, and when they hit next, they're taken to a screen that looks like any normal messaging app. I used an existing library for the Chat Danny app that was called React Native Gifted Chat. I actually didn't really like it that much. It barely worked, so I ended up spending even more time in building an entire custom one for the Doodle app. In theory, React Native Gifted Chat lets you customize all the parts of it, but after spending a few hours with it, it made no sense to me. I mean, look at this input. What even is happening? I tried fixing the padding. I have no idea. So eventually I just gave up. Also, as a quick aside, holy shit is it annoying to deal with keyboards in mobile apps. I never have to think about this for websites, but I literally had to write some custom code to bump up the little input and the submit button when the keyboard pops up. And also I had to write some code to move it back down when you dismiss the keyboard. And honestly, that whole process made me contemplate my career choices because that was such a waste of time. So for the admin side, Danny was going to have a view that the users don't see. And it's all incoming messages. So I made it so that he could have an incoming tab and a responded tab in case he wants to just keep track of specific messages instead of scrolling a list of thousands of incoming messages. This didn't matter in the end because we only really had 15 to 20 or so messages, but you know what they say. Build for scale. Scale fast, build slow. Scale. But yeah, that's how the apps worked. So at this point in time, the apps were fully functional and I've been sending Danny updates. And we were testing the apps out and making sure everything looked good. And thus began the horrifying journey of publishing an app to the iOS App Store. For those of you that are non-mobile developers, let me explain to you how it works. The first thing you have to do is pay $100 to be in the Apple Developer Program. Yeah, you heard that. $100 just for the privilege of being able to publish your app. Not even being able to get the opportunity to maybe publish your app because they have to approve it still. So the next thing is preparing the app for submission. We used Expo, which made this a lot easier, but this is basically having a production build. Then comes the absolute fun part, which is creating a listing for your app on App Store Connect. This involves writing an app description, setting the price, some legal stuff. You gotta decide if your app is available in France for some weird reason. Tell the government if you use encryption, which I honestly didn't know the right answer for, but I hope I got it right. Then I had to design some fun screenshots that would show up in the App Store. And then and only then, after you do the million things that they ask you to do, can you submit your app for review. Now, the App Store review process is kind of like going to the DMV. You wait in this really long line for some random human to start reviewing your app. They've probably seen like hundreds of apps that day, and then they look at yours and they're like, great, another AI app. Well, the good news is that the Doodle app got approved very quickly. The story's kind of funny. When they review apps, they actually sign into your app and use it. So someone sent me the prompt, just the word the. And I was like, what thing could I possibly send back in response to the? So I took a piece of paper and wrote the word "the" in it and just sent it to them. If I had more time, I would have done the SpongeBob "the," but I didn't want to spend like 15 minutes doodling it for them to reject it based on how long it took. So pretty soon after I sent that photo, the app got approved. So we were good to go for Doodle. So after Doodle Danny breezed through the review process, I submitted Chat Danny and waited to hear back. And of course, just like Doodle, it got approved. It actually got rejected. Okay, they said the app didn't work because it didn't provide a response in chat. Well, that's because they sent me a message at 3 a.m. and I was asleep at the time, so what was I gonna do? I responded and said the backend was down and that I've resolved this issue. So yeah, I basically lied to Apple. So then I resubmitted the app and we were good to go. Oh, nope. Ooh, it got rejected again. And you know, this time I responded really quickly, in like 30 seconds or so. But still, it somehow failed to meet the requirements. Also during this, they randomly said I needed to build an account deletion feature to meet the App Store requirements, so that's fun. So now I was a little stuck. It seemed like it was going to be a little difficult to get this approved. So I did what they asked. So I added account deletion. That was really easy. I also added this cute little dots animation that would play after a user submitted a message. It kind of gave the illusion of typing, once again lying to Apple. And then I did something absolutely horrible. I pulled in ChatGPT. What I didn't mention earlier is that Firebase also has this feature called functions. Basically, you can write some code that can listen to events that are triggered in your app, and then something happens based on those events. So I set up an event to respond to new messages using the ChatGPT API. It's just really funny to me that I had to basically build a real AI app in order to get a fake AI app approved. Did I basically just catfish the Apple reviewers? Yes. Am I nervous that I'm about to get banned from ever submitting apps to the App Store ever again? Yes, but it worked. The app finally got approved and I could finally make it go live. So then I told Danny and then we did a quick test to make sure that Chat Danny was working properly. And then I hit the button to make it go live. So I'm assuming we just push this button and it'll release this version. Are you sure you want to make the app? Let's do it. Let's go. Oh my god, I think that was it. There was no second screen. That was it, it's out. And I did the wrong one. Okay, so I fixed it by hitting this button and saving. So now Doodle's not on the App Store, but the chat one is, so yay. Dude, I straight up pressed the wrong button, bro. I accidentally submitted the Doodle one and I got too excited. Anyways, the app was public. And now as a developer, all I had to do is sit back and watch and see if there were any errors coming in. A couple days after the chat app was released, we released the Doodle one. It was so cool seeing apps that I built for real, just on the App Store. And it's so funny because it's been a dream of mine since I was little to make my own iOS app. It's just crazy that it was a fake app. And after this video, I'm gonna take these apps down, so not that many people will even really experience it, but it's making me really wanna make iOS apps in the future, so maybe that's what I got out of it. But yeah, there you go. Follow your dreams. I hope you liked this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to Danny Gonzalez as well. He's amazing. I'm so thankful he reached out. It's been so fun working with him. He also posted a video on how he used the apps and I think it's really funny, so go check it out. I'm gonna leave the links down below so you can click on those. And if this video tickled your fancy, leave it a like and maybe subscribe as well. I'd appreciate it. But yeah, thank you everyone. Bye!